Would you pay to fly first class? A couple days ago, my girlfriend Sarah and I got home from 10 days in Georgia, the country, not the state. And it was a very long flight, 10 and a half hours to Turkey, and then around 3 hours to Georgia, about 13 and a half, 14 hours in the air. And we flew coach, and it cost around $3,000 for the two of us to fly round trip. And this is what coach looks like. And it's fine if you're flying, a couple hours or less. But 10 and a half hours crammed in like sardines with no leg room, not a good time. So I took this photo of our meal as a sort of motivator to make enough money to fly first class from now on. And what we ate, it was disgusting. I'm going to move my head in a second, but I just wanted to warn you. I got the meatball, which on a flight of over 300 people, a plane smelling like meatballs was disgusting. It also came with rice and some stewed chickpea thing and a curry porridge, I guess, and this ultra sweet, disgusting piece of bread covered in sugar and honey, and this excuse for a salad was just disgusting. I also noticed that when we got on the airplane, they shuffle you through first class first to make you feel even more inadequate. But the people who were in first class, there was a person dressed like a chef handing them champagne, and they had a cheese plate. And they were, "Oh, could you get me a towel so I can wipe my face, please?" And we walk through something that looks like this to this, and we are fed this. Just give us a lean cuisine at this point. You know what I mean? So anyway, I took this photo as a kind of reminder that, one day I'll make enough money where I can justify flying first class, until I looked at the price for first class. So let's say I wanted to go to Paris in December, just me, just one guy, round trip, flying economy. This is what it's going to cost me. It's $1,100 round trip. Now, to sit on the exact same plane, to go to the exact same location, which will take off and land at the exact same time, well, it's going to cost a little bit more money. You can see I upgraded it to first class here. All right, so it's not the same plane, but it's the same time. So don't be annoying, okay? Anyway, I know there's going to be a big argument here that if you're wealthy, you deserve to be more comfortable. You've worked hard for it, so you can have more opulence. You can have better food, more room, more comfort, better air conditioning, more space. You have an individual seat instead of being wedged in like this for 10 and a half hours on a seat that has about this much cushion and then a piece of metal under it. And I know it's a different conversation for another time as to whether people who have less money still deserve to have some level of comfort or not. But when I saw the price for one person to fly first class round trip to Paris, it definitely gave me pause. And you frequently hear people say on TikTok, once I have money, I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy a Lamborghini. I'm going to buy a big mansion. I'm going to do all these things. I would take my money and put it into very speculative, high growth, high risk stocks. It takes money to make money. And I hear that all of the time as a finance content creator here on TikTok. But we all know that once you get that actual money in your hand, it can be very different from the fantasies you talk about. Once you actually have $1 million, you're going to guard it a lot harder than you think you would, in your fantasies. And I think I've always been this way, which is, being a little bit more protective of my money. I remember when I was a little kid, and I mean, I'm a minimalist now, but as a kid, I don't think I was, but I definitely didn't want a lot of things, but when I did want something, I would go to my mom. I would say, "Hey, I want this thing." And my mom would sit and she would say to me, like, "All right, look, if you can earn that money, the full amount of money, I will split it with you. But you have to save or invest the other half of the money." So if the toy I wanted was $100, I had to come up with $100, and then I would keep $50. My mom would spend the other $50 and buy me the toy, and $50 would go into savings or an investment or something like that. And I would make money as a kid by doing odd jobs, walking dogs, taking care of cats, helping old people carry up heavy packages in our building, $10 here, $5 there, whatever. And as soon as I got that $100, I would go to my mom and say, "Hey, look, I got $100. 50 of it would go into the bank and 50 I would spend." I would all of a sudden start questioning, do I really want this thing? I worked so hard for this $50, actually $100. I worked so hard for this $100. Do I really want to part with it for a toy that I know I'm just going to play with a few times? It's going to end up in the closet. And then I would start talking myself out of buying that toy. And I'd say, I'd rather just keep the $100 and not part with that money that was so hard for me to earn. So here I am now, almost 40 years old, taking a photo of the shit food that we got while we were crammed into coach class for 10 and a half hours on an overseas flight, saying, this is going to be my motivation to fly first class. And remember, this is what a 7.5 hour flight would cost for one person round trip in economy class, $1,103. And this is what a different flight, but same time, would cost to get me from Washington, D.C., where I live, to Paris. You ready? $17,000. And the astonishing thing to me was when they carted us through to our little pig pens, and we had to walk through first class, it was totally booked. Totally booked. Now, maybe these people are so unbelievably wealthy that it doesn't matter to them to spend $16 or $17 or $20,000 on a flight, or maybe it was credit card points, or maybe their business paid for it, whatever. But as someone who's always been a little bit more reserved with spending, the thought of spending $17,000 to be on the same plane to go to Paris when I could just spend $1,100 and maybe stay in a nicer hotel for a longer period of time really gave me pause. So I want to know, and this isn't an all the money in the world question. I'm not saying if you were Bill Gates or if you were The Rock. I'm saying if you were just some regular guy who had a lot of extra income coming in, a more high paying job, would you, even if you could afford it, and you wouldn't miss the money, would you still be able to spend $17,000 for a round trip flight? Just the flight, not the hotels, just the flight to Paris. Would you be cool with doing that when you know you could spend $15,000 less to be on the same plane? I want to know. Let me know in the comments.